Our topic for today is building resilience in a COVID world of work. And we're going to argue and suggest that resilience is a particularly important topic right now. COVID's been impacting on individuals and organisations for some time and will continue to for the foreseeable future. The strategy of waiting for things to return to normal presents significant risks. So the challenge to us as leaders is to consider how we greet this new challenge and how we manage those risks, but also how do we support our teams to greet this new challenge and manage risk in this COVID world of work. So we're going to dive into that topic in just a moment, but before we do that, just a little bit of housekeeping. About Sentis and about some of the resources that you'll be provided to accompany this session. So Sentis has a mission to change the lives of individuals and organisations for the better every day. We do that through the application of psychology and neuroscience to build leadership capability, to build team cohesiveness and alignment towards safety, and to help organisations understand what's working well and what's not working well in regards to their safety culture strategy, so they know what levers to pull to get the best possible results. Resilience and wellbeing is a key part of the work that we do in that approach because, and you'll see this a bit later on, there's a strong link between individuals' resilience and wellbeing and their ability to make effective safety choices. There is an accompanying resource set to this. So as Sarah mentioned, you'll be provided with recording for the webinars. So anything that you might miss as we go, obviously be able to rewatch that, but there's also this PDF that will be sent out with that as well. So that puts some of the information into words so that you can have the models and the resources available to you to reference as you work through the webinar. It's an editable PDF as well for you to take notes. So we're going to cover this topic off in 4 steps. So we've done a bit of a welcome and overview. We're going to be jumping into why resilience, the 5 practices of resilience, and what good looks like. And we'll give you a couple of case studies and examples of what good looks like from different organisations that we've studied. So firstly, to launch into this topic, let's have a quick conversation around why we want to talk about mental health in the workplace and the role that resilience plays in mental health. So we've taken some data here from Safe Work Australia. I mean, we've looked at average data year on year from the year 2012 through to 2017. And over that period of time, what we've found is about 6% of all serious workers' compensation claims are for work-related mental health conditions. So that equates to about 7,200 Australians being compensated for work-related mental health conditions. But where it gets really interesting is the impact, both from a personal perspective on people, but also from an organisational perspective of these claims. So what the data's shown is that for mental health related incidents, we're seeing about an average of 15.3 weeks off work for an employee versus about a 5.5 weeks off work for other claims on average, and a difference in cost to the business of between from $24,500 versus $9,000. If you dig into that data a little bit further, the major one of the major drivers of those particular claims is work pressure. So work pressure and feelings of that stress within the workplace, about 31%, so the most significant contributor. So this presents some significant challenges in general when it comes to ensuring that you've got a mentally healthy workplace and that your people, your team members have the resiliency to get the job done. But it presents even more of a challenge in this COVID world of work. This COVID thing has now been going for around about 6 months, and it's going to continue to present a challenge for some time in the future. So we've run a bunch of webinars around this topic. One of the webinars we ran was embracing the new normal or accepting a new normal. So we actually asked safety professionals some questions around how they'd been approaching this new world of work, this new world of COVID work. And what they said is about 76% of them reported that stress is impacting employee safety in the workplace. So 76% of them said that the stress related to the current circumstances they could see was having a tangible impact on employee safety. However, only about 44% had actually put strategies in place to manage that increased stress beyond their existing EAP services. What makes this even more concerning is, despite this being the case, Yeah, there were a bunch of people who acknowledged that things weren't likely to go back to normal. So we're finding that was this sort of strange two-speed, nearly set of thinking around COVID, where a lot of professionals were going, all right, well, things will be back, safety professionals thinking, well, things will be back to normal at some stage. That was the sort of gut feeling that they had. But then when they actually sat there and they consciously thought about it, 97%, as you can see at the top here, actually then thought, well, actually, no, we're in this for a lot longer yet. So you can see here at 47%, 12 to 18 months or until a vaccine is found. That's how much longer they're expecting COVID to be impacting. And 50% believe that things were never going to be the same. 2% said it'll be done by Christmas, and one said it'll be back to normal before we know it. So really interesting sort of environment and scenario that we find ourselves in at the moment, particularly with also new working arrangements, people working from home. You know, there's a whole lot of risks that perhaps we hadn't perceived that we need to get our heads around as safety professionals. And one of those we're going to suggest really strongly is the risk of mental health concerns. So one of the tools we're going to talk about is how we as organisations, we as leaders can support people to build their resilience to deal with these ever-changing conditions. I hinted before that there's a strong relationship between well-being and safety, and that's supported here by this research from the Stanford Center of Stress and Health. What the statement here says from Dr. David is that it's very clear that a big proportion of safety problems are due to human error, and some of that is related to stress. Life is full of stress. If you're not stressed, you're dead. But the thing about handling stress well is being able to appraise it, react to it appropriately, and put it behind you. You need to be concerned as a manager for the overall health of your employees. And that's certainly a position that's held by Sentis. At Sentis, we're all about acknowledging the stress and using that stress energy for the best possible outcomes. But sometimes the difference between us channeling that stress into effective outcomes or effective strategies versus ineffective strategies will come down to people's resilience. So the way we define resilience, so we're all operating off the same page for this webinar, is we define resilience as our ability to cope with stress, change and challenge and bounce back after hardships and adversity. So this is our ability this isn't about never feeling impacted by stress, never feeling low or anxious or a bit down. This is about putting in strategies which mean that we don't stay at that lower point for as long as we might have otherwise. So as opposed to being down and out, if we have a low period, it's a bang, bang, and we're back to where we need to be. And in fact, if you put some of these tools and strategies in place, you can actually build resilience like a muscle over time. And that resilience can actually hold you in good stead for more significant challenges and opportunities that life may present. So we're going to dive into, through this session, the 5 practices of resilience. But before we do that, we'll launch the first poll, Sarah, and we're going to tap into here a little bit of your perspective. So in your organization, what percentage of people do you think feel that their experience at work positively impacts on their well-being? So in your organization, what percentage of people do you think feel that their experiences at work impact on their well-being? So that's, I go to work and as a result of it, I feel better. I feel like work gave me some positive juice around my resilience. So is it less than 20%? If you review your whole workforce, is it less than 20% feel that way? 20 to 40, 40 to 60, 60 to 80, or more than 80%? So what percentage of your workforce feel that work positively impacts on their well-being? So I'll give a couple of minutes for those results to come through, and then we'll share some of the research that we've been able to gather from a number of participants, over 2,500 participants in some recent surveys that we've conducted. So how are we looking there, Sarah?
Well, we have 70% voted, so I can probably share the results now.
Perfect, let's do that.
Hopefully.
All right, so a bit of a spread here. So we've got none saying that that less than 20% would feel that way. Then we've got a pretty even spread between 20 and 40 and 40 to 60, and then more than 80%, again, quite strong. So some really positive perceptions around the impacts of work on people's sense of well-being, which is great, and also probably some more challenging ones as well. What our data found is this. Our data found that if you just split up the impact of work on people's well-being, that there's a fairly even spread. So again, this is across over 2,500 workers from across 6 industries. What the data found is that about 32% on average said work negatively impacts on my personal well-being. So by going to work, I come home and I feel like I'm in a worse psychological well-being state than when I turned up. 35% were neutral. They said that it didn't really impact either way. And 33% said that it would positively impact on their well-being. So a fairly even spread. And it's a very interesting measure for organisations to understand, because we've obviously, this is the averages across industries. We get some very different skews, which provides some very interesting insights for the businesses we work with. So our goal through this session is going to be to look first of all at some individual practices that we can put into place, or our people can put into place to build their own resilience, or our own resilience to manage this world of change and challenge. But then we're going to look at some organisational factors that we need to consider to be able to support people to feel like they're going to work and coming back with their resilience tank recharged. So we're going to talk about these 5 practices of resilience, and I'm going to talk about a bit of an analogy here about being resilient, being like a fuel tank in a car. So consider these things as being ways of fueling up our resilience tank so that we can overcome the peaks and troughs and the challenges and the rough terrain that we may experience in life. So the 5 practices that we'll cover off in turn, and we'll go through this at a relatively quick pace, but there are resources available on the Sentis website if you'd like to know more about any of these. We're going to talk about active engaged. So this is practicing health and wellbeing behaviours that build endurance and promote health and emotional recovery. We're going to talk about the idea of being optimistic and solution focused. So this is tools to practice cognitive flexibility and strategy. We're going to talk about living with purpose. So this is really about having a clear vision for our lives, a meaningful purpose and goals, and basing our decisions on our strengths and our values. Connected and aware refers to how we build positive relationships with others, and social citizen refers to some really interesting research linking practicing kindness and giving back to actually fueling up our resilience tank. So to kick off, we'll look at active and engage. So this is, again, physical health behaviours that help to put fuel in our tank and promote and improve stress tolerance. Now, some of these will not be a surprise. If you've done research into this space, you will have heard and seen some of these before, but what we wanted to do was take a slightly different spin. We want to provide you with some of the neuroscience and reasons why these tools are so important. So we'll start by looking first of all at physical activity and healthy nutrition. So research shows that eating well and exercising regularly promotes positive neurogenesis. So that's the building of new neurons, neuroplasticity improves how existing neurons work and connect, and neurochemistry. So this is talking about the release of neurotransmitters that improve brain functioning. So what we're basically saying here is that by engaging in regular positive physical activity and eating the right healthy types of foods, you actually give your brain the resources to wire and rewire effectively to be able to deal with the circumstances that they're faced with. So think about a time where your brain has been firing on all cylinders, perhaps, versus being a bit sluggish. I don't know if anyone here has ever had a few too many drinks of alcohol. In the long term, this can be the difference between your brain feeling slightly hungover, for example, versus healthy, fit, energized, like we're just fully recharged as human beings. So over time, investing in these things basically means that there's more connection points within our brains, and our brains fire and work a whole lot better. That is supported also by controlled breathing. So controlled breathing triggers the parasympathetic response, which lowers stress levels and improves immune system resilience. This is referred to as a downstream benefit. So something as simple as taking some time out once a day to focus on our breathing, to oxygenate our brains and oxygenate our bodies and to recenter ourselves has shown huge long-term benefits for people's resilience and well-being. There's a bunch of different apps on the app stores and different things that you can download to practice breathing. But a nice simple breathing technique that we do at Sentis and promote at Sentis is the box breathing technique. So this is a process where you breathe in for 5, hold for 5, out for 5, hold for 5, in for 5, hold for 5, and you repeat that 5 times. If you practice that, find yourself somewhere quiet, you practice that, you'll probably find yourself a little bit lightheaded. The first couple of times that you do it, that's great. That's your body and your brain being oxygenated. For some people, they find the slow count of 5 for each to be a bit challenging, particularly if you're a naturally quite shallow breather. So you might choose to adjust that at the start and maybe start at a 3x3 box breathing exercise. But encourage you a nice, easy technique and tool that you can use straight away. The last one, which is a huge opportunity for a lot of people, myself included at times, is quality sleep. So research suggests that sleep helps learning and memory in 2 distinct ways. So first, a sleep-deprived person cannot focus attention optimally and therefore cannot learn efficiently. And secondly, this sleep itself has a role in consolidation of memory, which is essential for learning new information. So basically, you need sleep to enable your brain to recover, rewire, and to be able to focus effectively on what needs to be done. So these factors, they often have a strong relationship with one another, as you can imagine. Often, what will also happen is if we're not getting quality sleep, that can impact on our nutrition. We might crave more sugary or more fatty foods. That can obviously impact on physical activity and alike. So a real challenge to you firstly would be to consider these 4 factors and look at how are these potentially having an interplay with one another and how can we get them in some more balance. By getting these foundational pieces right, it really sets us up to start to apply some of these skills. So some of the optimistic and solution focused skills. So what we'll talk about here is cognitive flexibility skills that enable us to basically reframe or think about different ways to approach problems to solutions. And the first tool that anyone who's watched our resources or our webinars or attended our programs will be aware that we're a huge promoter of is the concept of locus of control. So we talk about the locus of control, we talk about promoting people having an internal locus of control. So individuals with an internal locus of control have a strong sense of self-responsibility, and they also feel that they have the power to change their lives. So they're consciously aware that they have control over what they think, feel, say, and do. According to research, the adverse consequences of external locus of control, so these are people who aren't taking conscious control of their lives, are heightened levels of intolerance and anxiety, higher burnout rates. So what we're simply saying here is people who look at their life circumstances and ask themselves, what's my 50%? What have I contributed to the particular outcomes that I'm getting right now, and what can I choose to do differently to get to a different outcome, actually experience less stress in the long term, and they're generally more successful and perform better, but there's huge positive consequences for that. The funny thing is that external locus of control tends to be when we go into that more blame, pointing the finger, not taking accountability and responsibility. It can feel like a short-term gain. You know, if I don't take responsibility for this thing, I let myself off the hook in the moment. But what this research is showing is that if I don't take that responsibility over a long term, that anxiety builds and burnout rates increase because I've got that sense of helplessness and learned hopelessness. A tool which really builds strongly on locus of control is that of reframing. So reframing is a technique used in therapy to help create a different way of looking at a situation or a person or a relationship by changing its meaning. Think about any situation in life. So what we're saying in this situation is if we take any situation in life, there's a million different ways to look at it. And there's not normally one fixed view around anything. So when we talk about having a frame, think about a picture frame with whatever circumstance or situation in life in the middle. We think something about that situation, feel something about that situation, and do something. We might not be in control of the circumstances or the situation itself, but we can choose our frame around it. We can choose what we think, feel, say, and do. An example might be if we were to take COVID, which is a very immediate challenge. I might think COVID's the worst thing that ever happened. I might feel anxious and depressed, and what I might do is I might decide to engage in drinking as an effective coping, or as a coping strategy to deal with that. I might also say, I might also look at COVID and say, although it's not great, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to spend more time with my family and loved ones. I'm going to feel positive and energized, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that the time I have at home, I'm spending optimally to get the best experience for me and my family. So this is a process of consciously choosing the way we think, feel, say, and do about a situation. So another skill we can build. The last skill that we'd really challenge you to think about, and this is one that's often overlooked, is that researchers have found that we can rewire our brains to be more positive, creative, resilient, and productive, to see more possibilities. So this is the practice of optimism. So this is going out and looking for the good things that are happening in our lives, the good things that are happening in our world. And what that means is that we're, again, through these processes, fueling up our resilience tank so that when we are hit with life setbacks, we've got the resources to pull on in order to push forward. So this is an optimism one is one that I've been personally practicing for some time, and one that I'm really working hard to instill in my children. When my children come home from school, often the things that we'll ask them is, okay, can you tell us at least 3 good things that happened to you today? So I guess it's about, and we often say we've won the life lotto. So how do we really appreciate the things that we've got in our life that are good? Because our brains aren't necessarily hardwired to do that. Our brains are often hardwired to see danger and risk and bad things because they could be a threat to us. So, and when we find ourselves in that snowball effect, when we focus on not great things, that's what our brains find more of. So this is, again, taking a conscious decision to focus on what's good in our lives. So these tools, again, set another great suite of tools to fill out that resilience fuel tank. Another great set of tools that you can consider are living with purpose. So this is a mindset that helps us have a sense of achievement, and it gives us a really clear way forward and drive forward. So the key tools to consider in this space, first of all, are goal setting. And what this suggests is that by setting ourselves goals on a daily basis, it's small achievable goals, that process of achieving those things triggers your brain to have a hint of the feel-good chemicals such as dopamine and serotonin, which fuels our motivation. And what this also does is it means that because we're achieving things, because we're having that reward chemical, we feel more empowered, more inclined to find solutions for challenges. We become more confident, we become more optimistic, we become more self-directed and self-determined. So being clear about what we want to achieve and achieving those milestones is incredibly important. And again, you see people do this in a range of different ways, whether it's professionally or personally. People will set themselves sporting goals or special project goals, and that sense of achieving things regularly, even though they may be small, fuels that energy. Another important skill to consider here is a growth mindset. So you may have heard some of this research come out, but the research basically says that people will often have a predominant mindset, a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. So when people believe they can improve their intelligence, their skills, and their potential, they understand that when people believe that they can improve their intelligence and skill and potential, they tend to focus on that. They put extra time and effort into learning and growing. And the fact that you're dialed into this webinar suggests that you've got at least elements of a growth mindset. This is versus a fixed mindset. A fixed mindset is you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I don't want to learn new things. I just want to do things the way that I've always done them. I don't have that sense of natural curiosity or wanting to know more. Again, I had a really heartwarming experience with one of my daughters just last week. She's playing 3 sports in afternoons. Any parents here will know what that's like, getting to and from sports. And I said, "Oh, you must be exhausted by the end of the week." You know, we're rolling from rugby season. She's into cricket season. Are you still keen to keep playing so much sports in the afternoon? And she said to me, "Dad, I just love learning new things." So she just loves turning up to these sports, and she loves participating, and she loves learning new things and new skills. And that's a growth mindset. That's a mindset where I'm constantly looking to go out and stretch myself and get better. These things also feed really well into the concept of focusing on our strengths. So when people have an opportunity to use their natural strengths, they tend to be happier, more energized, more resilient, less stressed, less prone to burnout, perform better at work, feel more engaged, satisfied, and committed to their job. So what this basically talks to is, what are you really good at? And being conscious and deliberate about recognizing that strength and using that strength, practicing that strength whenever we can. Because again, often when we're not doing so well, often when our resilience tank is starting to empty, we'll pick it ourselves. We'll find all the reasons why we're not good at something or we should be good at everything. Where what this talks to is, how do I acknowledge what my strengths are, play to those strengths, and perhaps even connect with team members to support those strengths. So there's certain things about my role that I'm quite good at. Excel isn't necessarily one. As a result, I don't particularly enjoy Excel, and I don't get a lot of energy out of Excel. So, but I've got one of my colleagues, Dazza, who loves Excel. So when we want to put together a spreadsheet or whatever the case may be, we partner together. He's getting energy from the Excel spreadsheet. Weirdo? No, just kidding. If you like Excel, that's good for you. I'm getting energy out of the ideation and the strategy part of it, and it works really nicely. And you come out of it feeling energized and enthused. So again, be aware of what your strengths are and play to them where you can. Fills up that resilience tank. The next one here is connected and aware. So emotional intelligence skills that foster strong social connection. So again, we'll tap into this and give you a little bit of the neuroscience behind this. First concept to explore is the social brain. So it's important in this space to understand that we are as human social beings and that we will have threat and reward responses triggered by social encounters with other people. The typical things that trigger either that threat or reward response, and this is from the work of David Rocket: status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness. Some of those will be bigger triggers for each of us than others. So understanding ourselves and what helps to energize us towards what triggers our threat and reward response is really important. That taps into this concept of self-awareness. So self-awareness is about understanding and connecting with our emotions so that we can effectively process and manage adversities. So this is about checking in with ourselves effectively and saying, all right, well, I just came out of that meeting, or I just came out of that social interaction, or I just came out of that experience and I'm not feeling great. What is it that's going on for me right now that's leading to me not feeling great? And what can I do? Perhaps I need to do some reframing. Perhaps I need to go and have a conversation, whatever the case may be. What is it that's making me not feel great, and what can I choose to do about that? So that self-awareness combined with social brain is huge. The alternative is, I don't feel great, I'm going to sit in it. And I'm going to maybe put some unhealthy habits to try and mask that feelings of not feeling great. And I'm going to let that not feeling great impact on my sleep and a range of different factors. So That ability to stop and reflect is very useful and very important. The last one in this space is positive relationships. So practicing emotional intelligence enables us to have authentic and supportive conversations. So this is about having strong positive connections with others. And it's incredibly important for resilience. So again, my social interactions with other people, play into my relationships. If I go away from social interactions feeling that it wasn't a positive outcome, that can have a huge impact on my resilience. It can really start to drain that bucket. So consciously having great positive relationships with people, spending time with people that we like to spend time with, talking to people about the challenges that we may face are all really useful ways to start to top up that resilience bucket. The next one here, which has been a huge reflection point for me of late, is social citizenship. So this is about connecting to values, meaning, and a higher purpose. So the first one here is understanding and being consciously aware of what our values are and behaving in a way that's in line with our personal values. If we're not aware of what our values are and we're not consciously behaving in alignment with them, we can sometimes experience what is known as cognitive dissonance. So this is where you feel that yucky feeling about the way you've engaged with someone or the way that you've behaved in a particular set of circumstances. And that can impact on your resilience. It also can link back to, again, what's the priorities to you? So we talk about in Sentis the concept of the PB5. So these are the 5 most important things, people, places, or situations to you. So have you got your priorities right? And are you putting the things that you value most first? And how do they inform your decision making? So are you investing enough time in your family? Are you investing enough time in yourself? I found myself in the habit the other day of, and this was misaligned with my values, I'm at home, but am I at home? I'm on my phone. So how do I be present in the places that I need to be present and show the people that matter most to me that I'm invested? This taps into these other couple of items which are really crucial as well, and they are contribution and kindness. So contribution and kindness, so there's a mounting body of evidence that shows that having a higher purpose, giving back, and practicing small acts of kindness creates a release of oxycontin, which is a positive brain chemical. It makes us feel good in the moment, and this has a cardioprotective effect on us. It also creates a ripple effect of kindness, and you may have heard of the concept of 3 degrees of separation, in that often if we practice kindness, if we practice contribution, there's a knock-on effect to that as well. So there's a bunch of different ways you can consider going about this. You don't have to do necessarily huge things like start up a charity or anything like that. It might just be about thinking about, how do I practice kindness and contribution on a daily basis, and start to have that positive ripple effect. Nivo, who supports me in these webinars, one thing that he does, he'll go around and when he's making a coffee, he'll offer people, particularly people who are looking stressed or a little bit under the pump, can I make you a coffee? It's a small act of kindness, but one that I know I've certainly appreciated on a number of occasions. So again, you can play to your strengths. I coach a 5-year-old rugby team on Friday afternoons. I don't necessarily always want to go there on an afternoon, but it's generally worth it when the kids appreciate it at the end of the session. So how can you apply some of these social citizen concepts to start to fuel up your resilience tank? So the 5 concepts that we've explored here are active and engaged, optimistic and solution-focused, living with purpose, connected and aware, social citizenship. So I'll encourage you to have a think about, out of all of those, what's your greatest strength and what's your greatest opportunity area? And what's something, it might only be one thing that you can start to practice or implement post this session to add more resilience fuel into your resilience fuel tank. We'll tap now into, or spend a bit of time now thinking about what good looks like. A little bit of a vision statement though to kick us into this. Imagine this. What would it be like if you were part of an organisation that was truly thriving, resilient, and prepared to face whatever opportunities or challenges are thrown its way? An organisation that was a front runner for promoting resilience and well-being. An organisation where every individual felt they were living life as the best version of themselves. A place where everyone comes to work feeling at their best and full of energy. A workplace where we make choices for our own well-being and the well-being of others. A place where we are committed to achieving balanced growth, connection, and personal and professional excellence. What would that mean for your organisation? There's a mounting body of research that says that well-being is closely linked to health and productivity. Research has shown that employees who are in good physical, mental, and emotional health are likely to deliver optimal performance in the workplace, a more optimal performance in a workplace than employees who are not. Healthy, happy employees have a better quality of life, a lower risk of disease and injury, increased work productivity, and a greater likelihood of contributing to their communities than people who don't. The nature of work is changing. So these changes are going to have a considerable impact on people's well-being. So it's important as we're addressing this changing world of work to think about, do we have the right practices that adopted to promote employee well-being? Example, non-standard employee arrangements or flexible working agreements. Can we also foster a team member engagement and improve performance through promoting particular activities or programs within an organisation that support those positive feelings? Because what we're really dealing with is we're looking at how we, as leaders within the organisations that we work in, how do we help people deal with or fuel up their resilience tank in the face of a number of factors that may be taxing their resilience fuel tank. So we're talking here about the typical things that impact on people's resilience, and they're actually fairly similar pre and post COVID. Are firstly job security. This is possibly enhanced in a number of organisations. As organisations are experiencing commercial impacts of COVID, people not having a sense of strong job security is a huge tax on the resilience tank. Financial security is another one, often tied to that job security. But for a number of organisations and a number of individuals where they've had to implement perhaps reduced working hours or they've frozen remuneration reviews, etc., these things will be taxing on people's resilience. Health as well. So again, a number of people's ability to practice the normal health practices, exercise and the like, has been impacted over this time. So, people not managing their health or not having the ability to manage their health has a huge impact on their resilience, as does relationships. So for some people, working from home has been fantastic. They've got to spend more time with their loved ones, less time for commute to schools and work, etc., and they've actually got to spend more time with their loved ones. However, for some people, being stuck at home has been a real stress. Not everyone's home environments is supportive and positive, and it hasn't always had a positive outcome on relationships. So how do we support people through that tough period? So a model that we encourage organisations to consider is our WellBeing Culture model, which is up on the screen now. And it taps into the following 5 areas. So I'll encourage you to consider these questions as you think about your organisation. So first of all, in individuals. Do individuals feel a sense of achievement in their role? And are they empowered to seek assistance when needed? Does the design of the job enable employees to feel meaning and purpose in their work? So do people understand how their role contributes to the organisation's performance and perhaps a higher purpose or a mission of the organisation? Are team members strongly connected in order to assist and support one another? So what's your team cohesiveness like? Do they like working together? Do they feel that they're supported, or is it a dog-eat-dog competitive environment? Are leaders cultivating high quality relationships within their teams? So how are your leaders impacting on the way that your team members interact? And finally, do the organization's environment and practices facilitate employee engagement? So this is everything from the physical environment that supports supports individuals, to the way that individuals are able to engage with work. Is it a rigid 9 to 5 kind of job, or do people have the flexibility to do the life admin and things that support them to be at their best at work? So I've got another quick poll for you here, which I'll ask Sarah to drop up on the screen. So which of the following does your business currently invest in the most? Is it the individual, the job, the team, the leader, or is it organizational factors? Which of the following does your business currently invest in the most? This is a critical question to consider, because we've obviously spoken about, and this is a point from a recent webinar I ran, but we've spoken about a number of tools that we can give individuals to build resilience. However, if we don't have the right environment and circumstances set up around that, it can be just as detrimental as people not having the skills themselves. So the results have come in, and as we can see, the most significant investment is in the organizational factors. So, and that's not uncommon, and we often see this in the safety space as a whole, don't we? There's a lot of time put into the engineering and the practices component of a particular challenge, but not necessarily the same sort of time invested in leaders or individuals, or even a sense of teamwork. So the lowest investment has been, a clear link between job and outcomes, which is a good opportunity, followed by individual and team, and then by leader. Okay, so we're going to talk in just a moment about how these factors fit together to help or hinder us. So we'll jump into, first of all, looking at the foundations for a resilient culture. So foundations for a resilient culture, the first one here is to commit and execute a comprehensive strategy that extends beyond the EAP and the fruit baskets and yoga. So this is about thinking more broadly and taking in factors from across this wellbeing culture model. So we'll jump into a case study by an organization called NextJump. So for those of you who are not familiar with NextJump is a $2 million e-commerce company with over 200 employees, headquartered in New York, with a bunch of other satellite offices. They've got a philosophy that they've driven in the business: better me, improve yourself; better you, help others; with what you learn equals a better us. Health and wellness are one of the core foundational principles of the business, and is offered with help is offered with all aspects of health, fitness, including managing energy, nutrition, mental health. They found that by investing strategically in these factors, they are able to get sales growth increase from 30 to 120%. What's interesting about NextJump versus many other organizations is their demographics. So they had mostly under 30 engineers. So driving down their healthcare costs, being an American company, wasn't so much the driver. It was more about retaining top talent, getting the best out of their team members, and helping people not burn out with I guess the demographics of the people who get intensely stuck into projects. So they said that not only do they see a huge return on investment in their people in terms of sales growth, but their reinvention of the company culture and management philosophy has seen them get huge market accolades and made them has been a real attractor for top talent. So an interesting application of wellbeing and resilience tools. Another possibly more familiar case study for people is that of Southwest Airlines. So Herb Keller was one of the most transformative leaders in history of aviation. He was repeatedly voted the best CEO in the aviation industry, and some would argue he was perhaps the best CEO in America during his tenure. So one of the key drivers of Keller's leadership is he put employees first. Southwest's successes are widely attributed to his highly committed and motivated workforce. from the beginning, Herb fixated on looking after his employees so that they would look after each other and they would take care of their employees. And the devoted customers would ensure the growth of the business. So Southwest organisational culture promoted employee wellbeing as a core principle based on a belief that employees who are properly taken care of are ones that will provide the highest level output. So as you can see from the quote, the business of business is people, yesterday, today, and forever. And as among employees, shareholders, and customers, we decided that our internal customers, our employees, came first. The synergy, in our opinion, is simple. Honour, respect, care for, protect, and reward your employees, regardless of title or position. And in turn, they will treat each other and external customers in a warm, in a caring, and in a hospitable way. This causes external customers to return, thus bringing joy to shareholders. And we all know the success that Southwest has experienced over a number of years. The next component to consider focusing on heavily here is investing in your leaders. So anyone who's familiar with Sentis knows that we do a huge amount of safety climate work with our customers globally. Interestingly, one of the strongest relationships that we've found in our research, and this particular study comes from about 11,500 participants across 7 industries, including industrial services, agriculture, utilities, education, oil and gas, manufacturing, and mining. What this study found is that there was a strong positive relationship between wellbeing, climate, and leadership capability. So what this graph basically says is that where safety leadership was strong, there was a greater sense of a wellbeing culture. So people felt more cared for. They felt like they were supported in their well-being. A lot of this ties back to a sense of, or a perceived sense of commitment from leaders. So leaders had in these sites where it was more effective, not only was there a sense of commitment, but they'd actually been given some of the skills and some of the tools to be able to have supportive conversations and support their workforce in a positive way. Again, this is a massive shortcoming we do see for a number of organisations. Where leadership isn't strong, wellbeing generally follows suit because there is such a strong relationship between wellbeing and effective and supportive leadership. The next one here to consider is resilience and wellbeing isn't a one and done situation. It's not a case of putting a fruit bowl on a table and rolling out a training program and you're done. We really challenge organisations to think about resilience as a practice, not a program. So when we think about that, we think about, well, how do we insert the practice of resilience into existing frameworks and methodologies within organisations? And you've probably done this to a certain extent with safety, hopefully, for those of you who are safety leaders, but thinking about, well, what are the opportunities that we will create within our agreed meeting structures, within our interactions with our teams, to talk about, promote, and check in on people's resilience and wellbeing? How do we structure that in a way that leaders are driving it, promoting it, and we're creating the space for those conversations? So I'll create a bit of space for some conversations. We've got about 10 minutes left. But before we do that, just a quick summary of some of the things to consider here. We need to take action now around COVID if you're not already. Now is the time to provide employees with the resilience support. It's a crucial part of your safety strategy. If you've got distracted, stressed team members out there, you're going to have a significant impact or exposure to those risks and to those hazards. So looking at resilience, flipping a conversation of resilience being a positive contributor not only to your safety outcomes but to your organisational outcomes and can have a significant ROI. Leaders are critical in this process. So if you don't have an engaged and committed leadership group around resilience and wellbeing, that's your first place to start. So the 3 things that we can consider here is create a clear vision and a comprehensive plan, invest in your leaders' capability, and again, create that space to talk about resilience. So I'm going to encourage you to put any questions through that you may have, but while you're thinking of those questions, an opportunity to engage further in this important conversation. So some of you may be familiar with our intensive leadership program that we've been running, which has been very safety focused. We've launched this new program, which is a Leading Resilience Masterclass. So this will give you the tools to be a leader in the resilience space within your organization. So the topics are, the investments are very short investment of your time, over a series of 3 weeks, so 3 90-minute webinars, and there's a bunch of additional resources that will be made available to you. We'll cover off the neuroscience of resilience, creating a culture of wellbeing and resilience, and navigating change, challenge, and adversity. So the 2 cohorts start on the 8th and the 5th, 8th of October and the 5th of November. And to register your interest, you simply have to click yes on the poll on the screen, and Nivo will get in touch with you to check out whether you'd like to participate in that process. So I encourage you to put those thoughts in. In the meantime, there's a bunch of additional resources that will be sent around as part of this webinar pack, but you can also go to our website. We've got free wellbeing toolkits that can be made available to you. So that's at sentis.com.au. There's also a really useful resource and webinar there on having supportive conversations. So if you don't know where to start in terms of giving your leaders the skills and the tools to be able to have a conversation that's checking in on your team members, if you think that's a barrier, you can feel free to send that through, to get in, jump on the website, and we'll be able to make those resources available for you. Alternatively, hit me on LinkedIn or email our website and we'll be able to provide that. So looks like the poll's shut. So Sarah, any questions come through so far?
No, we don't have any questions. Every time I say that, there's normally a question comes right at the end. But anyway, I've shared the worksheet resource in the chat, a list of upcoming webinars in the chat, and also a link to your website there in the chat. So hopefully we'll be seeing you. We'll see you in a couple of weeks, I think, for a webinar on
creating a compelling safety vision. I think that's the one.
Yes, that's the one. Yes. So hopefully people can join us again then. So we don't have any questions. I think you did cover that very well. And I'd like to thank you for joining us again, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you all, and thank you for taking this time to invest in your team's wellbeing and resilience. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Anthony. Okay.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.